introduce yourself as Kevin
Yes,
Sanders.
yes. My name is Kevin Sanders, for those of you who don't know. And my presentation may end up being half and half. We'll see. You'll see how that half and half unfolds. I'd like to start by saying, first of all, I'm very pleased and honored to be here. I had initially not intended to present anything, but I was forced to. Of course. And I say that primarily because unlike your distinguished colleagues here, I was never a professional practicing academic in the same way that you guys are. Okay. I was at a university and I taught for a year, did projects for a year, and then after that I became part of the administration. So everybody say boo.
Give it over with.
Okay. But I'm going to start actually by trying to just give you a little background on how I met Algis, and I prefer to call him Algis instead of Al, although everyone calls him pretty much whatever they're comfortable with. One of the most entertaining things that I always found was that sometimes some of my foreign students who would that I knew would refer to him as Algie.
Yeah, I can see that.
But anyway,
Well, he grows on you.
Yeah, that's right. That's a very good point.
That was good.
I found my way to Dr. Mickūnas in a sort of a backdoor way. I was embarrassed into it. And by that I mean one time was, and I'm going to get into some of this because this does apply to what I'm presenting here. I was looking for a job after I had left the career that I had, because I had a whole career before I came to Ohio University in 1991. I'm a lot older than I look. And when I was applying for this job, I don't even remember what the job was now. I made some references about how I was familiar with philosophy. And of course, I didn't know, I knew how to spell the word, okay? And the woman who was on the other end of the phone, I don't know if she got a clue about that or she had some genuine interest. She said, "Oh, really? Can you tell me about what's the latest developments in blah, blah, blah?" And of course, my mind went blank. And I basically kind of hung up the phone, said, well, that's one job I won't be getting. So when I found my way to Ohio University, and I transitioned from one job, and that job was I was a trader in the stock options market. And stock options are that dirty word that you refer to now as derivatives. Okay, and I will talk once again a little bit more about that. But I was in that world for almost 15 years. And I decided I didn't want to be in that world anymore. And I looked back to what I thought I could do, what I was, what would make me happier, and that was to be a writer, a journalist. And so, through any number of circuitous routes and accidental happenings, I ended up at a journalism program at Ohio University. It was just a summer workshop. And no, I didn't meet Al just then. But what happened was that at the end of the workshop, see, the workshop was designed for you to get a job afterwards, blah, blah, blah. But I decided I didn't want that. I decided I wanted to go back to school because I hadn't finished my bachelor's degree even. So when I did that, I started in the fall of 1991, and I remembered that embarrassing incident. So I said, I'm going to go sign up Philosophy 101, okay? And I signed up for Philosophy 101, and of course, any of you who took that basic course, probably at any big school or something like that, the class is in this huge auditorium. And, it was the 8 o'clock class, and I said to myself, I'm not going to sit in the back, because if I sit in the back, I may fall asleep. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to sit up front, which will make me have to stay awake. And So I'm sitting there on the very first day of class in the front row, front center, and this guy comes walking in with this bag over his shoulder and his hat. And I said, okay, this is going to be interesting. And he walks in every morning, and of course, as those of you who know, who've taken that type of course with Algis, probably none of you, but anyway, he tells a joke. Every morning in class, he starts the class by telling a joke. And I thought that was a cute way to, you know, have the class. So anyway, eventually, you know, as he saw how bright I was, we started talking. And he made some comments to me. Well, two things happened. He made some comments to me about democracy that just I had never heard before in my life. Just kind of stunned me, knocked me off my feet. Okay, and I said, "Wow, this guy is really smart." I wouldn't have thought of that. Okay, and then the other thing that happened was that I noticed that around in the I noticed that there were these handbills up saying celebrating, I thought I was 25 years old, Elizabeth, not 20. Celebrating, you know, X amount of years of Algis Mickūnas at Ohio University. And I said, wow. I said, now I wonder, I said, I'd like to go to that, but I don't know if I can go to that. I don't know if it's open or anything like that. So at that point I asked Algis, I said, Algis, well, I said, Dr. Mickūnas, excuse me. Dr. Mickūnas, I still want to get a grade, you know. Do you, I said, can I come to this? And he says, oh yeah, you can come. He says, come and then come to my house afterwards and there'll be a big party and everything. So I did. And that was actually how, you know, I began to get acquainted with Algis. Now, as I said, I took that course and one other course from Algis formally for a grade. But he can tell you, I was always there on Friday afternoon at his graduate seminar, so I could try to learn about things that I didn't have a clue about, these names of people I had no idea about. And occasionally I would even make, you know, a contribution. But it was it was obviously very engaging, it was a lot of fun, and of course there was a lot of drink. So that sort of, you know, everything sort of balanced itself out. Now, getting on to this, so to speak, I guess we'll check something. Okay, okay, all right, getting on to this. This is the first time I've been to Europe, okay, hopefully it won't be the last time. I came here to Paris first, okay, and some people have asked me, you know, why'd you come here? And I said, business. Well, it is business. You know, I'm the vice president of an NGO called the People Program, okay, and we came to Paris and met with officials of the French government, in fact, some of the highest officials of the French government, because we're you know, this NGO, although it has international concerns, clearly. In fact, it has sponsored a big conference at the UN once on xenophobia and racism, etc. I was involved with it then. I was like 15, 20 years ago. We were there to set up some joint cultural celebrations with the French, to talk to the French about something called the financial transactions tax, which I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, are familiar with, and also to talk about educational exchanges with schools, with the school that we basically represent on the south side of Chicago, and to actually, and we did this by meeting with the highest official of the ruling party there, a guy named Harlem Desir. And so that's how I got there. But all of that interest that I have, what got me to the NGO, in a large part, was because of what he said about democracy, you know, more than 20 years ago. That always sparked a flame in my mind. Plus, Algis and I have collaborated on a few, and I have to say this quickly so he won't throw anything at me, unpublished projects. Okay, and those things have, you know, once again, kept me motivated in this direction. Now, I want to say about this topic, which is technology as freedom, freedom as the future. In one sense, I think, well, it's a really big, loaded topic. There's no way in the world, at least from my perspective, that I could cover this in 20 minutes, let alone the 10 minutes or so that I have allocated left. But I do want to try to touch on a few things, okay? But to do that, I want to start by just talking about some basic definitions. It's always a good place to start. And, okay, here we go. Technology. Well, what is technology? I'm just going to read a couple of definitions that I gleaned. Okay. Technology refers to the making, modification, usage, and knowledge of tools, machines, techniques, crafts, systems, and methods of organization in order to solve a problem, improve a pre-existing solution to a problem, achieve a goal, handle an applied input-output relation, or perform a specific function. It can also refer to a collection of tools such as machinery, modifications, arrangements, and procedures. Technology also is the branch of knowledge that deals with the creation and the use of technical means and their interrelation with life, society, and the environment. Technology is also the sum of ways in which social groups provide themselves with the material objects of their civilization. Just remember that one for a moment, please. Okay, technology is also the discipline dealing with the art and science of applying scientific knowledge to practical problems. And my favorite definition, one that I created, so to speak, is the scientific manipulation of natural forces through material means to achieve specific objects or ends. Okay? So there's a few definitions of technology. Freedom. Well, I think this falls much more squarely, so to speak, into the area of you philosophers out there. But I'm going to start with what I consider, once again, just some basic definitions. This will be a little bit lengthier because I plan on, to cover hopefully all the things that are relevant here. Okay, freedom. Freedom, the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Freedom is also the absence of subjugation to foreign domination or despotic government. That's obviously a more political definition. Freedom is also the quality or state of being free, as the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in the choice or action. Once again, one that you guys are very familiar with, I'm sure. Freedom can also mean the liberation from slavery or restraint from power of another. Freedom is the quality or state of being exempt or released, usually from something onerous. Okay. Let's see. I know a couple of these are redundant. That's why I'm going to skip over here. Freedom is also the right or privilege of unrestricted use or access, the power or liberty to order one's own actions. Okay. Freedom is the quality, especially of the will of the individual, of not being totally constrained, able to choose between alternative actions in identical circumstances. Okay. And now we're going to go into, I think, something that kind of coheres right along with freedom. That is autonomy. Okay, which literally comes from the Greek words, one who gives oneself their own law. Okay, that is the capacity of a rational individual to make an informed, uncoerced decision. Autonomy, too, also refers to self-government of the people. Now, of course, Algis has written quite a lot about that in terms of his conception of the public domain and the not just the how can I put it, not the right of people to be in and part of a public domain, but their obligation to create this public domain where political decisions can occur in the way described by that original Greek term. One who gives oneself their own law. Would that be fair, Algis? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, now, but I'm going to jump forward to a meaning of freedom that kind of ties more into what I'm sort of currently involved in, and I just got through describing. Okay. John, I might go a little over. Okay. FDR, I think it was before he died, which would be, I think it was 43, okay, made a speech that's commonly referred to as the 4 freedoms, okay? And those 4 freedoms were freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. Okay, and one of the things I didn't talk about in terms of freedom, obviously, freedom has its negative and positive aspects. The freedom to be able to do something, and the freedom to be able to do something in the sense that you're not being restrained. Freedom from want and freedom from fear would be negative freedoms, so to speak. Whereas freedom of speech and freedom of worship would be positive, or the freedom to vote. Those would be considered positive freedoms. And I think this is where, in one sense, technology today is a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword, okay? Because as we know, I don't think I have to go too far into the history of technology, from man's ability to control fire, or the wheel, all the way up to the development of the printing press, telephone, all types of modern things that make our life better. But in this brief period of time I have left, I'm going to introduce another thing that I think is just as relevant of a technology that's not typically referred to in that way, and that's money. Okay, money I see fundamentally as a way of mediating relationships or transactions, and by that I mean I can, with given the right circumstances and the right amount of money, I can do virtually anything. In the same way that, given the right technology, I could do virtually anything. And what I think, especially in the world since the fall of the USSR, or even, well, I should say even before, but, well, no, since the fall of the USSR and the so-called triumph of capitalism, what we have is the ongoing proliferation of a world system that's based on money as the basis of your freedom. And what I see, especially, and I think this is especially relevant, when we look at the stock market crash in 2008, excuse me, I said stock market, yeah, right, just the general crashes that occurred in 2008, housing bubble, et cetera, which led to which also afterwards, the market crashes, et cetera. What we see is how much our lives, and I think we know this anyway, are tied to the influence of money in the world of finance. Right now, I think the United States, which still has the largest economy in the world, maybe not for long, has a GDP of about $15 trillion. The overall world economy is something around $66 trillion in terms of, the GDP. But ironically, when you look at the amount of money that's concentrated in the banks, in the banking system, it's almost $600 trillion. So you have to ask yourself, how does the banking system get to have $600 trillion worth of assets, and the real economy, where things are actually produced, okay, is not even $100 trillion? And therein, in that imbalance, you see one of the fundamental problems of technology that we face. Now, I'm going to sort of close this up by just saying a couple of things. If we look at the broader picture, and when I say broader, I mean, I'm thinking of actually a more scientific picture. All technology is about the control and use of energy, okay? Whether it's fire or the wheel. Okay? And in fact, without making our bodies a machine, if one of the aspects of freedom, Adlai Stevenson, a great politician in America, used to say, a hungry man is not a free man. And I think that's very clear. So essentially, and that goes back to one of the first aspects of energy, unless you have enough food to eat, which converts the energy in your body, which keeps you from being hungry and obviously keeps you alive, that's a restraint on your freedom. But that translates all the way up to what I call the organizational level. And by that I mean we have energy uses at higher levels, such as fossil fuels, electricity, etc. That this whole matrix of energy and technology is just, and I don't think we normally think of it in this way, is so crucial to what the freedom of humanity is, how that's going to unfold or not unfold. I think I might have said enough. Yeah, it's 10:23. I guess, what time did you start?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I have to, unlike most of you who are already probably packed, I'm not packed, so I got to go back and pack. But, thank you, Joe, I appreciate that, especially coming from you.
I'll take it.
So is that
Any questions?